Hi guys, we're back with another interview, part of my Hidden Pain series. And today we have the amazing, awesome Gemma Watson. And Gemma Watson is a coach, a mentor, specializing in habit transformation, shifting your mindset with wellness and growth. Gemma has also won an award for mentoring, has a diploma in behavioral neuroscience and psychology, and loads more. And if I was to like list all of Gemma's attributes and everything, we're gonna be here all night. So, further ado, I want to welcome Gemma. Thank you for coming, Gemma.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So my first question, I'm going to dive right in, is who is Gemma Watson?
Wow, that's taking me a long time to figure that one out. How I really summed it up now is just Gemma Watson is a lover of life. Really appreciating everything that not necessarily that I create, but what's there. Because I think sometimes we try to create so many amazing opportunities, moments, but actually there's loads that's already there. So that's how I sum it up first, a lover of life. And then not a calling I kind of chose, I really believe it chose me. I say mentor to many, that's second. But yeah, that's Gemma Watson really.
Okay, cool. And what drew you to mentoring and coaching?
So I started at 15 as a peer mentor. My sociology teacher pulled me up once and said, she noticed that I got on with everybody in different year groups and she wanted me to mentor someone. And I was like, okay, what does that involve? And at the time I was studying psychology and sociology. And she was like, well, you'd meet the person on a one-to-one basis and essentially talk about their goals. But that's literally it. That was the conversation. And the young man, I knew that he was on the verge of being, kicked out of school, really wanted to help him. So we spoke about home life, spoke about his goals, his aspirations. And I did that for a year. That was my first insight. And then when I left school, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Nobody wanted peer mentors. And it wasn't a thing of being a mentor because you're so young, who are you mentoring? Yeah. So I kind of put that down. And I didn't pick it up till I was about 23. I went back into education and I was able to start mentoring. And it just grew from there. I did it in all types of roles that I was in. So even if the role wasn't a mentor role, I incorporated that within my role. 9 times out of 10, it was always in the lunchtime or after school or, so forth. But yeah, and then over the years, working in secondary education, implementing peer mentoring programs, working with managing teams and having to mentor adults as well. And sometimes the parents, because if you mentor the children, you're speaking to the parent because you want to keep them informed. And obviously as trust builds, that kind of opens up. And then about 4 years ago, I started to kind of really question myself, who I was as a professional, who I was as an individual, and what I really wanted to do. Like I always felt I had this frustration and I didn't know what it was at the time. But one of the common things when I was looking at, who I wanted to be as a professional was I was always happy when I was supporting other people, not necessarily for what I wanted their goals to be, but for their individual goals. I've worked with people that have certain, different learning needs, different abilities. And I always felt a sense of gratitude and appreciation to be able to support someone on their journey to reach their goals. And it could have been as simple as, someone not having ID and building the confidence to get their ID, then go to the cinema alone and incorporate that in their life, right. Not necessarily a business goal. But yeah, and then I'd say about 3 years ago, I was like, okay, I think I found my calling, because I said I really believe that it chose me. Yeah. All my roles, they just seem to be supporting roles and go together. So yeah.
I just want to touch back on the fact that at 15, like a teacher saw that in you and was like, that's a lot of responsibility for a 15-year-old to take on for another child. Like, that kind of blows my mind. But at the same point in time, it's like she saw what you had and knew that you could actually deal with it, and you was actually going to deal with it in the sense of not just like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do the bare minimum, you did that extra mile and you didn't need to, and you was 15. You was a child supporting another child, which I'm still just kind of like, damn, Gina, like that is absolutely like, it's amazing, but crazy at the same time.
No,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's funny actually, because I often think of that time, and it's the same when I worked in education. I think the one thing I think I was lacking there and in all my roles was training. Mm-hmm. Because again, when I said, you know, what is mentoring, there wasn't like, oh, you know, it wasn't a system that was put in place in this in the school. Essentially, it was this teacher didn't want this young man to be kicked out of school. And she just felt if you built up a trusted relationship with someone, that may not happen.
Right.
And so absolutely, if you know, as you do, you see things in people and you give them a responsibility. And I think that definitely laid that foundation for me. And I've definitely had, you know, run my own peer mentoring schemes with young people being, you know, 15, 16. But I think that's what was lacking, was the training. And I think the reason why it was lacking, because it's not known that you give mentors training. 9 times out of 10 mentors are unqualified. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think that's why there was no training. I think that was definitely lacking, because it would have been nice to really know, while my intention was there and I really wanted to help him. We did build in fact, we had a good relationship before our mentoring relationship, but it would have been nice to have the structure that I built later on in my mentoring journey. It would have been nice to have that from the get-go, because who knows where that could have been now. But, you know, everything happens for a reason, right?
Very true. Now, I mentioned previously that you have diplomas in neuroscience and psychology. Now, also you have qualifications for coaching. Now, the neuroscience is the one that's got me going, you hear that word neuroscience. Maybe people haven't even actually heard it, to be quite honest. But hearing that, you're like, ain't that like scientist goggles, or like you're meant to be in a lab, that kind of thing? So like, the people who don't know what neuroscience actually is, can you give us a little brief insight?
I mean, to put it as simple as I can, it's the study of the brain. Mm-hmm. So what neuroscience does, it studies the brain, but then links to essentially psychology, which is psychology is the human behavior. So it brings that together. So not only can you understand the behavior, you understand what is happening to the brain while that behavior is present.
Right. Now, your main focus is helping people to transform their habits into a positive mindset, and getting them onto that pathway. Like everyone says, all right, a habit, it takes like 21 days. That's what basically is fed to people, that it takes 21 days to basically like get that habit to kind of like stick. Now, we've had conversations. We both know that's not the case. So, and I know you'd be like, I need to talk about this. Now, can you school the people on your approach on basically transforming people's habits, and how long it actually takes for a habit to stick?
Fair enough. Yeah, of course. So most people say 28 days, and yeah, that's true. But it's at minimum. But the truth of it is, it's just dependent on the person. It can go up to 254 days in terms of building a habit. And that's when you understand the brain process and actually human behavior, because sometimes to instill a habit, you have to learn about an unhelpful habit, unlearn that, and then implement a new habit. Right. And this is what some people don't realize, that when you're trying to break a habit cycle, sometimes you've got to get rid of the old one. For some people it's different, you know, and depending on the habit you're trying to build, sometimes it can take the 28 days. But I know for a lot of people, if you think of January, you know, the gyms are always packed, and then by March it's empty again. Mm-hmm. And it's that same thing. If it took 28 days, then actually people will accomplish all of their goals. Yeah. So it's just that. But again, I think it comes down to not understanding the brain function, not understanding human behavior. And I think that's how I approach building a habit, because I come with that. I've got that knowledge of the psychology, and I've got the knowledge of the neuroscience. So I just say to people, the first thing is, you've got to get to the truth. You've got to get to your thinking styles, because you can't change a habit if you don't know your thinking styles, and especially the unhelpful ones. Now, there's 11. I didn't know this at first. I mean, in fact, there's more than 11, but there's 11 common unhelpful styles. So if you don't know all the unhelpful things, what are you changing? All you're doing is trying to, essentially, I use like the analogy of a bottle, put more water in the bottle and it's going to overflow. And actually there's things that you can get rid of, so it makes the process a lot easier. So yeah, I'd like to just say to people, look, first you've got to break it down. Be kind to yourself, because I think that's the biggest thing. We are our biggest critic. So we get very, get really demotivated. We're hard on ourselves. Just take it easy. What you do today, you might have had a relapse on what, on a day, but think where you're going to be in 4 years' time when actually you've built that consistent habit. And then we look at patterns of behavior. So we look at what have you done before? What's your execution like? When you've tried to do habits, what's your success rate? And I think that there's a lot to be said about looking at the past so you can now plan a new future. Because if you don't identify those patterns, you're just going to you repeat the same process without even realizing. So that's kind of my approach.
Cool. Because I was just like thinking, like you were saying, it's like trying to keep packing the same suitcase with a whole heap of different clothes and be like, why won't it close? Babes, because you still put in clothes in there from when you was 9 months old. Can you fit them? Can you use them? Like, take it out. Can you give us like 4 of the 11 unhelpful traits?
So the first one is black and white thinking. So black and white thinking is when you've got the thought process of it needs to be this or this. Now, some people would say that's, that's them putting their boundaries in, or it helps them to have things clear because then there's no confusion. The problem with that is when you take that approach, anything that's in between that, there's no room for it. So that's your thinking, but you're going to take that thinking in the situations you're in, the opportunities you want, and the people around you. And it's 9 times out of 10, their thinking is going to be in the middle of your extremes, So that's one. Magnifying is when you take a situation and you blow it out of proportion because you genuinely do believe that it's bigger, oh my gosh, this happened, but actually in the bigger scheme of things, it's really small. Or another one that a lot of people do is they personalize situations. So they go through something and it goes, it's because of me. It's because of me why you've done that. Or something I've definitely heard a lot is, oh, you think I'm a waste man, or you think you're taking liberty because it's me, I'm too nice. And then what happens is people take people's actions and they personalize it because they're like, oh, your actions is because of me. Actually, the truth of it is, a lot of times, whatever our actions, whether it's helpful, unhelpful, it's 9 times out of 10 because of us, how we think, how we feel, how we perceive the world. Nothing to do with the other person, as much as it might be done onto the other person. So I'd say those are the main 3. If we're gonna go for 4, what's another one that I can give you? Mental filters. This one is wild. So the brain, if you think of everything you see, everything you hear, everything in just one day, in that one day, the brain deletes 80% of data. So that's 80% of sounds, things you've seen, all the things you think you remembered, the brain's actually deleted 8% of it. And what happens is because the brain has done that, and it does that just naturally, it creates a mental filter because your brain then has to put things back into place to create your memory. And a lot of times, like when you go to, like in court cases, they'll actually say to you, like when they have a doctor or someone that specializes in that, they'll say memory is not accurate because it fills those gaps. So yeah, mental filter is the next one. And I always say to people when they see that and they're like, but really 80%? And I'm like, yeah, so you have those times when someone says something to you and you're like, no, but I remember doing it. No, I did do it, but you don't know. Maybe you meant to do it, so your brain has put that back in. So actually nobody can swear blind like they did it unless they can see it, like, maybe sending an email and you've seen the email, so you can say, look, I did it. That's different, but yeah, I would say mental filter. So those are the 4 out of the 11.
No, even scratch that surface. You know, I was just thinking, like, sometimes when I would be like, we would have like experience, obviously, because people don't know, we've known each other since like 12. Yeah, like 12. Yeah. And like certain things that we're like reminisce on, and I'll be like, no, I don't remember that. Like, are you sure? Are you really sure? Because in my that's that part of that 80% that got takeaway, like, is gone. And I'm like, and you're like, no, Chanel, it happened. I'm like, no, it didn't. Like, it really didn't. And you have to be sending me photo proof. And then I'm like, oh, oh yeah, like now. And then now my brain's like, oh, you do kind of remember that, don't you? Oh, okay. So yeah, I totally get that one. I can totally relate. Now, you have been focused on the sporting industry, and you want to change how they support their players with mindset and obviously with coaching. Now, why did you choose the sporting industry out of many other like industries that's out there?
I think there was two things for me how it ended up aligning with sport. Mm-hmm. One, I love sport. I think the only sport I don't like watching is cricket, but I like playing cricket. But I like all types of sport. I mean, you remember in school, there wasn't anything, I think maybe cross country. Tell me to start jogging, I'm walking.
Yeah.
But outside of that, tennis, football, basketball, anything, I'm there. Mm-hmm. And along the way, I remember being in school, and I remember bossing, you know, sports day all the time. And I was like, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. And I didn't really necessarily have the support network around me to, you know, take me to a club and all of that type of stuff. But I remember saying, okay, when I leave school, this is what I want to look into. And at the end of year 11, I remember that sports day, and there was a first insight that I had an injury. Mm-hmm. And then kind of just left that world alone, really. So I think it was like almost like a bitter taste. And then when I started to kind of go back into fine-tuning my coaching goals, I looked at what I was passionate about. I was passionate about sport. And what I realized was, because I didn't have the support, I didn't understand the different pathways that they could have been in. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how many athletes, you know, for whatever reason, and this was true for, you know, young players that, you know, were in the schools I worked in, not all of them made it. And actually they weren't supported in other pathways. So there's coaching, there's the sports science of the game, you know, there's going off to refereeing, being part of the medical team. And I was like, okay, that's something that I think the game's missing. Mm-hmm. And the second thing was, I always hear a statement like, athletes, they're just different because they're like super beings. And I'm like, okay, so they perform to an exceptional rate, but they mm-hmm. train. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I just got on the track or I got on the field and that's it. They train.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, but they're human too. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you hear it in sport, just, you know, any field, but I kept on hearing these stories of abuse happening, you know, overwhelmed, the strain, the pressure, the burden. You know, these are things that are potentially life-changing for your family and yourself. So if you've got no money and then all of a sudden you and I endorse, you've got money, the pressure that you feel to ensure that your family are looked after, because now you can change everybody's life. And then if that goes, what happens? Mm-hmm. And, you know, while there's a lot in sport, there is a lot of support services. I just kept on reading a lot, and I was like, there could be more. And then also the thought process of, just because someone is in the work organization doesn't mean that's who you're going to go to for support. Mm-hmm. So I just thought to myself, you know what? I wanted to work with athletes because I can give them that confidential space, that space away from not having to worry that your coach is going to know, your teammates going to know, and you can just have your space. Mm-hmm. And the way I see it is they're human too. You know, so that's just, you know, I potentially could have gone into any field, education, social care, but yeah, I chose that just because I just thought it fuses what I love in terms of my passions, and obviously helping people.
Cool. Now, I'm going to ask you the big question as to why we're here. Now, have you experienced hidden pain? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
We'd be here forever. That's the truth of it. Of course, I think, you know, as we always talk about this, I think everybody has. My earliest experience, I think, of hidden pain was potentially when I was about maybe 7 or 8. I'd gone to Jamaica to go and live. And while being over there, I was sexually abused. Now, as you do, you know, I came back and I kind of just buried it on. Life progressed, you know, and you get older. So the demand of rent, bills, all of that type of stuff starts to kick in. And that kind of takes the priority. But I definitely believe there was, you know, that pain stayed with me, and it was hidden. It wasn't something that was, you know, for some people it's different. It's very in the forefront of their mind, and they might necessarily, you know, be dealing with those demons, you know, on a daily basis. But for me, I definitely feel it was a hidden pain. And then when I got to about, in fact, I will never forget this. In one of my education establishments that I worked in, I was supporting a young boy, and at the time he was 12, diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was like, I didn't understand, because I was like, I've never heard that term, you know, anything outside of the army, which makes sense. If you're killing somebody, I can understand that's a lot of violent stuff. And I was like, but someone that's gone through things that essentially, you know, most people in South London have gone through, and then you've got that diagnosis, that's huge. So I set off on wanting to learn about that. And then, my whole world changed, because once I learned about it, I was like, okay, this is so definitely me. Like, I was reading, you know, as one of the symptoms is having nightmares. I had that till I was definitely maybe about early 30s, you know, and I just thought, you know, you get out, oh, it's a bad dream. And yes, it is, but it was a reaction from having post-traumatic stress. And because I've never heard the terminology being used and never knew, you know, and there was some other things as well. There was a lot of other things that happened to add to that hidden pain along the way too, you know, ending relationships, all sorts of stuff. But I think how I ended up dealing with it, I got to a point about 4 years ago, and I just was like, something needed to be different. I wasn't happy. I realized there was a key theme of me not being happy. And at first it was very much like it was because of my experiences. That's how I saw it. My experience had made me unhappy. And I was just like, something's got to change. And at the time I didn't have the answers. And then I also felt like a fraud, because I'd been working with people, I'd been working with young people, I'd been working with adults. And I was like, I'm supporting them, but deep down, behind closed doors, I'm not happy. I was inconsistent in terms of my weight. So my weight would go up and down, and that would be because of my inconsistencies and essentially because of my hidden pain. And then I just set out on a journey just to learn. I was like, I need to learn about myself, learn about things, just like how I learned about post-traumatic stress, and it was an eye-opener, and then I could do something about it. I was like, I need to learn. I need to learn about the brain. I need to learn about emotions. I need to learn about love and relationships. And that's kind of how this has all come about, because you know, I believe that once you start learning, then you come from an informed place. And from me learning, I was able to put in new habits, you know, look at the habits that I needed to essentially unlearn, and just dig deeper and look at me, look at the limiting beliefs I picked up on the way, and just drop the reasons for it. Okay, yeah, those are the reasons, but are they helping me? Well, no. Okay, so what's the next step? Again, you know, it all took time, but yeah, that's how I did it. I just started on a quest just to learn, because I was like, I think it just hit me one day. I was just like, people would look at me and think, well, you know, but actually I didn't, because just like I didn't know about post-traumatic stress, I was like, what else do I not know about? You know, and then it turned out there was loads I didn't know, to be fair. But yeah, it was just a journey of learning. And then once I learned, it was, you know, it was just about implementing. the rest of what I knew, really.
It's like, listening to you, it sounds like, if I could sum everything up, was to get to that point, you finally chose you. Instead of choosing to support everybody else, you finally said, I'm choosing to support me. I'm choosing to sort me out and put yourself first, basically, because realistically, you wasn't putting yourself first because you was mentoring other people, being a support for everyone else. And I find with people that are in supportive roles, whether you actually have a title where you're getting paid for it, or whether it be a parent, a sister, or a friend, you feel like by helping someone else, you're helping yourself. And you realize that sometimes that can be at your own detriment, because you're pouring so much into somebody else and you can see their pain. You're talking them through it. You can be like, okay, right, I've given you all the tools and everything like that. But at the same point in time, you haven't unpacked nothing of your own. And you're still just going and going and going and going. And finally, you get to that point. Same thing with me. It was like, I had to get to that point when I'm actually choosing myself and saying, well, you can't keep giving to everybody else and not give nothing to yourself. Like, because you're just actually going to end up with burnout. So I would definitely say, like, you've got to that point. It's like, yeah, I'm choosing Gemma, and I'm choosing to inform Gemma instead of giving the information, just informing yourself, but then just giving it away, but then not changing yourself and healing yourself.
Yes, that was definitely one thing. There was an element of choosing me, but at the same time, prior to this, bear in mind, I thought I was always choosing me too. So it's a difficult one because, everybody thinks they're choosing them. That's the truth of it. I think before choosing myself, what it was there was two things. I didn't want to be a hypocrite, and I started to feel like I was that. I was like, I'd been coaching and mentoring for so long. What did I really know about coaching and mentoring? Like, what training did I do? So I was like, how am I informed? I felt very much like, okay, I'm supporting people in trauma. I'm supporting people in well-being, mental health, issues. And I was like, but it's come from a good place. My intention is good. My passion is there. But I don't really know what I'm talking about. Like, the training you get is minimal. A day here when you start in September, a couple of days there's some online training. And don't get me wrong, I did all my online training. When everyone's like, but you only need to do 4 or 6, I did all of them, which was about 28. So don't get me wrong, I did more than the most. But for me, it was, I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't want to be the person to be like, yeah, I'm out here doing that too, when actually I really wasn't. And I think that's what it was first. It was that. It was like, because as I said, at the time, I thought I was choosing myself. I thought I had balance. I thought, or at least balance in my eyes, that I best I could do in those situations. But the truth of it is, I think the difference is, once I started to say, actually, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I want to know what sets me apart. That was the biggest. I think that was the biggest thing that spurred the change, is me just going, yeah, I want to know what I'm saying, I'm talking about, I actually know about it. And
right. Instead of just kind of like, you just fell into it in that sense.
Yeah. And I think, no roles given me, I think one education establishment made me go on a day of training, day of mentoring training. That was it. So when you sum up 15 years of education alone, we won't go into social care, but 15 years working in education with one day on a mentoring course, that's crazy. In fact, that's really, in my eyes, it's concerning. Yeah. Because when you're supporting people, it's their life, it's their trust. And actually, yes, as I said, you've got the intention, you've got the relationship, you've got the trust, but you've got to come from an informed place. And there's so much, I look back now and I'm like, there's so much more I could have given in terms of direction, but you go with the tools you had, and that's the tools I had at the time. Yeah.
So that leads me into my next question, is when life got overwhelming and it gets overwhelming, can you tell me how you dealt with it in the past and how you deal with it now?
Well, in the past, I just run. That's the truth of it. I would run like that. Literally, I'd run. I'd change numbers, stay somewhere else, I remember going to like packing a bag, going to Bournemouth for 4 days. I mean, you know, it was a life-changing 4 days, don't get me wrong. But it had the pattern of me running. That's generally what I would do. Or I would, you know, run in the sense of, you know, not speak to people. That was my way of running away from things, not dealing with the things, you know. I'll tell you what, like in my relationships, I'd run. Just not communicate, shut off, you know. And at the time I didn't know that I was running. To be honest, I don't know what I thought I was doing, but that's essentially what I was doing. Now, I don't run. To be honest, I stand still in it. I tell people, and this is definitely true. My life changed when I stood in the face of the conflict, in the face of challenge, and in the face of disruption. So what I try to do is I built a repertoire or toolbox of different things that I do. So whether it is life is stressful and I go, okay, that's the time I need to rest more. That's the time I need to read more. That's the time I need to meditate more. That's the time I need to journal more. You know, that's the time I need to watch TV less. You know, so I generally do that, and I face it. You know, and it's difficult, but that's what I do. I face the challenge, disruption, and the conflict. To be fair, so that's what I would say. I do. I read more, journal more. I definitely, if the weather permits, I like to go and walk. I like to be in green spaces. I like to look at. I've got various workbooks, so I'd go back to those. And I think a new thing that I started doing about 2 years, and this is different, but I try to implement something that's difficult for me. So in like something I've said to myself, no, I would never do for whatever reason. Yeah, I challenge myself. Well, why? So in those difficult times, to stop thinking about those difficult times and what I don't have, and all of, you know, what essentially causes you to kind of think, oh, today I can't be bothered. I then go, okay, well, I'm going to put my focus in something else. What is it I can't do? So I tend to set myself some challenges, you know, 31-day challenges, not watching TV. I remember once when I was doing 2 courses, I watched an hour of telly for a whole year. So once the hour was over, I couldn't watch no more telly. You know, so I tried to do something that's going to be difficult, just to push my willpower, push my mind, and to get over an obstacle. That's how I deal with it now.
Cool. Now, self-care is something that we hear a lot, and I find that it's very surface-based when it comes to like the social media and that kind of thing. Hence why I'm very big on like obviously like the real self-love and not this like, you know, take 10,000 pictures and then you post one and then you're like, yeah, hashtag self-love. What does self-care look like for Gemma?
I think for me, first I totally agree with you in terms of it's very surface level. And I think now for me, self-care is really being in that moment, whatever that is, you know, because I think there's a lot of activities that you can do that do fall under the self-care umbrella. But you know, I'll give you an example of going to the spa. But if you're in the spa and actually you're not soaking up the moment, not taking that time, because the whole point of it is for you to relax, for you to digest things, that's the time for you to, you know, maybe reflect, get some relaxation, you know, sauna, whatever it is. And often a lot of times that's just another moment for the gram. And there's nothing wrong with capturing those moments. Please do not get me wrong. But there has to be a time where you just appreciate what's brought you to the spa, appreciate your life. And I think that's what it is for me. I've got to a point where, you know, there's loads of things I do. Some that might be with you know, physical activity. Some might be relaxing. You know, my reading is self-care. My journaling is self-care. Cooking is my self-care. You know, I look at it as any habit that benefits me and doesn't hinder me is self-care. Anything that recharges me, refuels me, makes me learn. But it's really just being in that moment. So if I'm reading a book, I'm not distracted. I'm not like got my phone next to me and I'm reading the book and then picking up the phone and then, you know, and actually I haven't absorbed the information I'm getting. I'm really engrossed in the book. Probably got a little book, writing some notes or highlighting the pages or whatever. So that's what it is for me. It's just really being in that moment, being really grateful, And you know, pretty much, I'm sure, like yourself, self-care wasn't something I grew up with. It wasn't a term I heard, you know, wasn't something I was practiced in terms of my family setup. So now when I am doing those things, I really appreciate it, really appreciate how far I've come, really appreciate why I'm in the spa, how I've managed to get to this moment, why I'm reading this book, how many books I've read, you know, the things I'm doing. It could be anything, but just really appreciating and staying in that moment and enjoying it. Doesn't have to be, as I said, I'm all for capturing moments because I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's also knowing when to switch off, you know, like when to say, okay, I've taken that picture now, the phone can go because I'm actually with people, you know?
Yeah. 110%. Like, I've noticed since self-care has become an hashtag, should I say, it's like it's got to be like a one-off thing. Like, okay, right, so you treat yourself this month. Like, okay, that's your self-care. Like, why isn't self-care a daily thing? Like, why should it be the fact of, okay, all right, I'm getting my feet done. Oh, that's part of my self-care. I get that done once a month. So then that's it. Like, no, like something is simple. It could be 5 minutes. You saying, actually, no, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to literally just sit here for 5 minutes and do absolutely nothing. That and just check in with myself, like self-care. It doesn't have to be some big elaborate something for you to be like, oh yeah, like it's Instagram worthy. It could be something really small, but it's still self-care, and do it on a daily basis, not monthly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, this is the same what I say about habits. There's some things you can do daily. There's some things you might do weekly. Some things you might do monthly. And some things you might do yearly. I feel like that's the same. It's care, isn't it? So for me, it's like care is like sleeping is caring for yourself. If you're not, you know, firing on all cylinders, you're not giving all your potential. There is an element that rest is care. So when you understand that, you're like, but then again, as I said, the problem with that is people go, yeah, but I slept 8 hours today. That's my self-care done. What? You slept 8 hours because you was drinking, you went to bed early, and then you didn't have to wake up early. So you slept 8 hours. So people mistake it. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why I say there's self-care activities, but really being in tune with what that is for yourself and really just be standing in that moment. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you should be doing self-care things every day. Cooking, you know, as much as people cook, sometimes we cook things that are unhealthy. So we could say it's self-care, but actually then you have to start saying it's a lot. And that's the problem with it being service-based, because it's a lot to actually unpick, because actually you could cook up a feast and you could be like, yeah, this is me and my self-care. But if you cook that up every single day, is that self-care? Or actually, is that hindering?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's all about finding that happy balance and medium for everything.
Cool. Now it's like with your hidden pain, like obviously I've had other people in this series, and it's like it's nice to know that like hidden pain, people just assume it has to be like a physical, like, okay, right, you know, some sort of medical condition or whatever it is. And it's like that's what I try to get over to people, that hidden pain is basically all and everything. The fact that you can't literally see it on someone's face, it's hidden. Like anxiety, you can't see it on someone's face, it's a hidden pain. Like what you went through, you as a child, no one had no idea. Do you know what I mean? And it's a hidden pain. But even when you were saying it, you was like, I'm not really sure if you class it as a hidden pain, but yes, it's a hidden pain, and it basically had a ripple effect to certain actions and stuff that you did throughout your life. And it's like, I want to drum that home to people, that you need to deal with your hidden pain. Like, so it is no longer hidden, so people can actually support you. So you can actually say, right, yes, I'm freeing myself from that, and it's no longer holding me down and making me do certain things and certain choices that's going to basically have a negative impact on my life. Like that, I think the way you explained it and how you basically came from point A and got to Z, because we're not even saying B, you got to Z and you've made this positive impact. Like, kudos, Gemma.
Do you know what? I think it's you know why I think people don't see their pain as pain, and I think it's when I started to really understand how the brain works, it's a coping mechanism. It's the way you've told yourself, oh, you know what, this person went through this. It was work, that person went, and so you kind of almost downplay it. You know, you minimize the impact.
Yes.
You know, and this is just with so many things. You know, I tell people about when you're looking at grief and loss. You know, people just think of bereavement, actually ending friendships, loss of opportunities. You know, a loss of your job. All of these things is going to make you experience grief and loss. So when you start to understand that, and then you realize that, oh, okay, so pain is just essentially, the hidden pain is just a spectrum. Where do I sit on that? You know, we all are here, emotions, everybody has it. You know, as I said, you know, I talk to people all the time about emotions, and they're like, is that good or bad? Mate, there's not an emotion that nobody can say, oh, I haven't experienced it. You might not be aware you've experienced it. But actually, if you speak to a professional and they dissect it, you probably go, oh, I didn't realize that. I've been experiencing that quite a bit, you know? And I think it's the same thing with pain. It's the way we cope. But actually, you know, I tell people all the time, we all have a story. That's the truth of it. And when you can identify your own story, because you start saying to people, take away the word pain, you start saying, have you ever felt disappointed? Yes. Have you started feeling frustrated? Yes. Okay, tell me some of those reasons. Well, I didn't get this promotion or this friendship or this relationship. Oh, how did it make you feel? And then when you start to uncover it, oh, that's your pain, no? And but then someone else will go, yeah, but I haven't been abused. So in their mind, it's not pain to them, but that's your pain. You know. So yeah, 100%. I think you know, once we start really understanding that everyone's got hidden pain, then we as the world, we can start healing and moving forward.
Yeah, because I realized I was one of those people that thought like, well, I ain't really been through much. Like, no, like my life was okay, innit? Like nothing really majorly happened to me. And then when I realized that obviously having endometriosis, and when it started, the fact that I was like 13, 14, I was like, hold up, one cut, big minute, like what? Like that blew my mind when I literally was thinking to myself this whole time, no, my life's just been mediocre. Like, yeah, I had fun times, I've had some sad times, but nothing big major happened to me. Like, no, my life was okay. But when I literally started unpacking that piece of suitcase that had a whole heap of crap, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not exempt. Like, just to see that, like, you can't tick, you know, on that form, oh no, I'm exempt from all of that. No, like I'm not partaking in that. No, thank you. I'm okay. I'm fine. Yeah, it was like an eye opener and a bit of a blow to my ego to be like, wow, I have a lot of shit to unpack. And unpacking it was like the relief you feel, but then also at the same point in time, you kind of think to yourself, why didn't I know this sooner? Like, why didn't I know this sooner? Like, what is going on? Like, I was there with my rose-colored glasses on, like saying, oh yeah, this is the life. I wasn't living. I was existing. I was existing through experiences and just thinking that this was life. And now I'm actually living my life. And I'm saying, okay, this is what life's about. And I've still got loads of learning to do. But I wish I'd known it a lot sooner. Now, I have a doozy for you.
Okay.
Now, if you could speak to your younger self and give 3 words of encouragement, what would you say?
Love yourself. That's it.
You know,
that's it. That's it. That's the best thing. You know, sometimes you go through stuff and then as you get older, you realize that you've made some mistakes. So I have a saying, hurt people, you know, and I can definitely say, I know I've hurt some people because I've been hurt, you know, and unfortunately you hurt the people not intending to. And it could be just friends. It could be just friends of going, you know what, I've got a lot of stuff to do. I'm running away from things. And actually, when you're thinking you're doing you're hurting people because actually people care for you. People are wondering where you've gone. you know, so it could be just as that. So I would say to my younger self, just love yourself, because when you love yourself and you really love yourself, you start to move from the pain, and then you don't inflict that pain onto others. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would say to my youngest self.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you said really, have to add that, really love yourself. Yeah, I'm getting, let people deep that, okay? Really, not that, I love myself because I'm dressed up and I look cute. No, babes, no. Like I say, love yourself down to your pinky toe, babes. Yeah, that little toe that sometimes you look at and you think, I'm not really sure about my little pinky toe. You need to love all of you, mate. Every single bloody part of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I remember there was times where, you know, as I said, I was very inconsistent with a lot of things in my life. And I remember times where, for example, if my health wasn't in the best place or my weight wasn't in the best place, I could definitely might not have said it out loud, but I definitely deep down never felt that. And actually, again, when you love yourself unconditionally, you don't beat yourself up. You start to kind of work through, okay, well, what's going on? Why is your health dipped? Well, actually, I'm working ridiculous hours, but if you love yourself, would you do that? Because you're burning yourself out. You know, so it's just that, just really loving yourself, you know, not saying, oh, but the money, oh, but this, but to what end, to what detriment, you know, because when it's all said and done, if anything happens to you, can you spend the money? No, you can't, you know. So yeah, it's just about really loving yourself.
Yeah. And it's definitely not an easy feat. So I think the earlier you start, the better, because I know with me, I literally used to be like, there's certain parts of my body I just feel like, ugh. But to get to that point when you actually fully can say, yes, you love yourself wholeheartedly, and it's no longer a facade, you can actually say, I can look at myself naked and be like, how you doing? Like, I can look at myself. Before I'd be like, okay, let's keep it above the neck, yeah, because I'm not interested in what's happening. And to get to that place where I can say, yes, I love myself in the weight that I am now. Before, no, I'll be fronting, and I'm not gonna lie. I'll be like, yeah, no, okay, as long as I'm dressed and, you know, I'm done up, then okay, cool. You won't catch me outside with my hair not done. Are you okay? Like, not me now. I'll go to the bins. I don't have to make sure that I've got that covering of, you know, got to look good because, you know, because if I'm this big, but I'm wearing good clothes, then it's okay to be outside going to the rubbish bin. You go into the rubbish bin that's like 6 feet away, but you're using that as a shield because you're not fully, truly happy with it in yourself. And to get to that point, when I had that epiphany and that aha moment, and being like, if I want to make changes, I can, but I love the skin that I'm in right now. Like, and that for me was, awesome.
No, absolutely. Again, we're not taught these things, you know, just like self-love, you know, trauma, all of it, you know, therapy. We're not taught these things. And I think people don't realize that you can love yourself, but still be very aware of the things you need to change.
Yes.
And that's the truth of it. And sometimes we love ourselves when we have met in our mind the expectations or the requirements of ourselves. Well, it's not real love. It's love with conditions, and that's not love. And that's the problem. So if you love yourself with conditions, the chances are you're loving other people with conditions. And that's why a lot of relationships don't work. Yeah.
We'll be here all night, and then we'll be like, this has been going on for 5 hours and we'll still be talking. Right.
My last gem.
Right, so the last question, let me just make sure. Right, yeah, the last question I'm going to ask you to wrap it up is, what's next for Gemma Watson?
I think first and foremost, in terms of my personal goals, because I really believe it has to start with me. So I'm doing my second degree now, so I'm like, yep, I want to finish that. In fact, I will finish that this year. And then I want to be I want to take my neuroscience, you know, to a higher level. So for me, it's just, I just want to continue growing, continue learning, continue implementing. That's on a personal level. And from a business standpoint, very similar. I want to keep growing. So one of the things I do is everything is about credibility. So the more I do, the more I learn. Essentially, it's just me building that credibility for you to see what I can do and what I, all the things I'm talking about. Where does it come from? So yeah, from a business standpoint, it's just that, I just want to keep doing more of what I love. That's it. Why would I do anything else? I don't want to do anything that doesn't align in my values, doesn't align, with my goals. I'm not interested in money. I'm not interested in name. And from a business standpoint, that's been very difficult. Sometimes I've had some meetings and the names behind it, I'm like, oh my gosh. But deep down, it doesn't align with the values, So sometimes I've had to go, actually. So yeah, I think that's it for me. I just want to keep growing, keep learning, and just nurturing. Because I think that's the key thing. When you want something to grow, the problem is we go, oh yeah, I want this, but we don't nurture that. And it's like being a gardener. You've got to make sure that you've got good foundation, good soil. You've got to make sure you're putting certain things, and then you're planting the seeds. So I just want to continue nurturing the things around me, really.
Cool. And you're going to continue to own it, yeah?
Of course. What else can I do but own it? That's where the shift happens.
Very true. Now, I just want to say thank you, Gemma, for this amazing, awesome interview. And if you guys haven't subscribed, what y'all waiting for? Hello, like, comment, and subscribe, and share, because sharing is caring. Bye, guys.